For some time now, Fox hosts have been saying you need to get back to work, and more importantly, you all want to get back to work. You all want to go back, and the government is being tyrannical by stopping you. And they've also been playing down the threat of the virus. And the thing is, if you're going to sell the message, people need to go back and also imply that it's not nearly as deadly as people thought, that social distancing and quarantining isn't necessary, as Tucker Carlson did a big segment on literally last night, then it seems to undercut your argument when you are saying that from your nice mansion in upstate New York, I would think. And I would say that they seem to have gotten that message, at least on Fox and Friends, because this morning, Steve Doocy had this to say.
Nonetheless, it's just a sign of frustration where people have had it up to here. We're sick of being closed. We're ready to move on. But, you know, Ainsley, Brian, you and all of us are in really restrictive areas right now. And that's why we are not all sitting together on the couch or even in the same studio, because the governments won't let us right now.
Yeah, there is nobody in Manhattan. And for those people who are critical of us, because I think anyway, we should be reopening at a much quicker pace, this is a hot spot. There's nothing here. One of the safest places to be is New York City because they cleared everybody out.
Okay, so they're only broadcasting from home because the government won't let them broadcast from the studio. And then Kill Me doubles down and says, it couldn't be safer here. So first, Brett, hold. What Doocy said is not true at all. Per a New York State executive order, news media have been deemed essential personnel, and they are permitted to leave their home for work purposes. The hosts of Fox and Friends are under no legal obligation to remain in place, and that is basically the case in every state across the country. If we wanted to, we could go broadcast from home, but we're not trying to convince people that there's no threat from studio. But we're not sitting here saying you definitely want to go back and it's safe to go back. We don't think it necessarily is at this point, which is why we're not rushing back to the studio.
I'm not jumping into a shark's mouth because the government won't let me. No, that's not it. That's not it. It's so stupid. He just lied to you. He lied to you, and in that is is the essential lie of Fox News. It is pretending to be one of you, despite the facts on the ground. That's it. He's pretending to be like that assembly worker who isn't going to work. And he wants to complain the same way he wants to put out the impression that he is a victim, the way other actual victims are victims. And that is what Fox News does day in and day out. And they're just not. Like, how are you trying to empathize with the plight of someone who is forced to stay home, who wants to advocate that they are an essential worker, when you are staying home voluntarily because they're trying to protect you?
Yeah. And they could go in with a skeleton crew. And here's the thing.
There's probably someone in the studio right now.
There probably are. The fact that they're not doing that tells me a lot, because they are savvy enough to know that if they were to go in with a skeleton crew, it would buttress their argument, or at least it would seem to. It would seem to imply that things are safer and that they're being consistent. But even knowing the potential upside to doing it, they still don't do it, which indicates to me that they are very much aware of the threat and that they are rightfully and understandably worried about catching a potentially fatal illness.
And here's I just want to say, like, if they got sick, I'm sure they'd sue Fox News. At the same time that they're advocating for protections from corporations to be sued by their employees if the employees are forced to come back to work too soon and do get sick.
100%. Now, I don't know exactly what happened right after Doocy and Kilmeade had that little conversation, but I do know that something must have happened, because at some point, Doocy decided he needed to just amend what he had said a little bit.
Country slowly reopens. I mentioned earlier we were broadcasting from separate remote locations. I said because the government won't let us. I need to clarify. We are simply following the government protocols and guidelines. And ultimately, if you are lucky enough that you can work from home, you should.
Okay, so he admits they're under no obligation whatsoever. We're just following the advice of government. The government says, sure, you could go back, but it's probably not safe to, because you could die from coronavirus. And that, to me, a millionaire who can sit in my house, seems very reasonable. But all the rest of you should ignore that, and you should get out there and go back to sports things and Trump rallies and all that stuff.
Yep, that's so stupid. And then there's a little bit of something that we're going to get into with garbage people at the end, where Kilmeade at the end of the first clip said essentially he says it's super safe. The reason it's safer now essentially is because of all these things you're complaining about.
Yeah.
Like you can't have the safe and the lack of social distancing at the same time.
Yeah.
And I get it, man. It's so frustrating. Like, we all know these things, you idiot, you dingus. Everybody knows that it's dangerous. Everybody knows that these are very annoying constraints put on people's emotions. We also know that your team is lying about it. And we all know that we need to find the right equilibrium here. We're doing it responsibly, and you'd rather just complain about it as part of your grift.
Yeah. Yeah, and just two quick things. One, he seemed to acknowledge at the end there, Doocy, that if you're lucky enough to work from home, you should. But I think sort of a necessary additional thought to that is, so what about the people who aren't lucky enough? Why should they have to throw themselves into the shark's mouth, as Brett said? What if there was an alternative? What if the government could help them? Why is that not even a topic of conversation? The possibility that they could be helped so that they don't have to for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I want to give a little bit of credit to Ainsley Earhart, who I don't often give credit to. She, after the Kilmeade thing, I don't remember exactly what she said, and I don't know what her position is on social distancing and all that, but she seemed to indicate that she was saying that Kilmeade was wrong, that it is still... There's, a lot going on in New York, and it's potentially dangerous. She also said a lot of people can't leave because they they don't have 2 homes. And then she paused and said, "Most people don't." Yeah, good catch.
You do.
Most people
and
don't.
The only reason she's saying that is because this is the safest time to fly, isn't it, Ainsley? Because she caught so much flack.
That's true. That's
after she made the mistake.
Yeah.
And they've been irresponsible the entire way.
Yeah.
And it's so strange to me that rather than understand the reason, the full implications of why they got the blowback, they'd rather just kind of technically be accurate without really understanding the spirit of what they should be saying.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I try to give her credit, but you're right. She was 100% wrong about that. It's the best time to fly.
Oh, it's the safest time to fly, she said.
Yeah,
it's the safest time to fly.
Best.
But these are the people that we put in charge of discourse in America.
Yeah, they get so many viewers every day. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.